Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our first Saturday Stories session. I'm John Strong.
And I'm Robin Bradford. John and I are partners on Ignite the Spark, and we're thrilled that you've joined us. And we're also thrilled that Gavin Booth is here and will be one of the
Yes.
mentors, as John mentioned, at our fall retreat coming up in October. So, just very quickly, background: I met Gavin through our mutual friend, Michael Collins, who's a Canadian producer. And Michael called me kind of out of the blue and just raving about this film called Last Call. And Gavin
Yeah.
conceptualized it, wrote it, filmed it, produced it, directed it, did everything it. And it's a really interesting and well done piece of film work. And I'd just like to recommend that if you haven't seen it, it is worth the
Excellent.
viewing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Gavin is very prolific and very skilled and has done a lot of commercial work as well as filming. And he's worked with Blumhouse, NBC Universal, and his latest feature is called Scarehouse, and it was released by NBC Universal. It was also named the best feature at the New York Horror Film Festival, and you can see it on Showtime Cable. It's called Scarehouse. So we are thrilled to hear from Gavin this morning on a I said to John, all we have to do is wind him up and set him free, and he'll take care of everything else. So, with that in mind, thank you for being here, Gavin. Really thrilled to see you. And just a quick mention, if you have a question, please just toss it in the chat box and we will get to it and look forward to hearing what he says and what your questions are.
Yeah, happy to be here. I haven't taken my ADHD meds yet for the purpose of not speaking three times my normal speed, and that way everybody should be able to follow along. Because as I talk about anything I'm excited about, I tend to get faster and faster and faster. So I'm going to try to keep it down. I could talk about movies and writing all day long. So nice to meet everybody. Yeah, I guess I'll just do a brief history. I grew up in just outside of Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Any Americans in the room? That's right at the Detroit border, so Midwest adjacent, Canadian Midwest. And it was a city that didn't have filmmaking. There was one guy I knew that had made a film prior to me, and growing up in the 90s as a teenager, there wasn't social media yet. There wasn't an easy way to sort of connect with people that wanted to make movies. I only wanted to be a writer. And at first I was writing short stories through elementary school and high school, but then I kind of fell in love with making short films and things with I wouldn't even call them short films. Let's just call them practice films. It was mostly parodies like Friday the 13th Part 27 or Indiana Jones and the Lost Remote Controller. It was just I had bought a video camera off of my paper route money, and then that just became my obsession, just running around making videos. But it was all to support writing. I just wanted to write, but I didn't have anybody to take what I was writing and transfer it to being a movie. So I just decided to do that on my own. And then I figured out I could make money with video doing regional TV commercials and wedding videos and that sort of thing. And I was saving up to go to film school, never ended up going to film school. Had a fairly successful, commercial video business that was paying the bills. That led me to my first feature that I shot not knowing anything about how to make a movie. I hadn't made a proper short film yet. I hadn't made a music video yet. I just jumped in and made a feature. I'd seen, oh, Kevin Smith, you take $25,000, you sell your car and your comic books, and you make a movie, you go to Sundance, and then your whole life changes. And it's like, the reality is winning Sundance is a lottery ticket. Getting into Sundance is next to impossible with the odds and then your real victory on a first film should just be finishing it. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, anything. You just have to complete it because you have to get it out of the way almost. Most of us aren't going to make high art the first time that we write a script or make a film, and that's perfectly okay. The same way that I'm not going to win the first marathon I run without doing any training. It's just not going to happen. Uh, So yeah, my whole career has been sort of like learning by failing, like living outside of a city that had a film industry. Should have moved to Toronto much earlier, didn't, just kind of stayed. And then that sort of became my method, was just like, well, I'm just gonna write the next thing I'm gonna make. I'm gonna figure out how to scrappily put it together. To the point now that even now, if I stand on bigger sets or working as a professional now, and I say like, well, yeah, use the flappy thing for the light clamp. Like I don't know what anything's called still. I just know how the things work and how to make the thing, but I don't know a lot of the professional terminology around it. So I've just always sort of been self-starting in what I want to make and going out and finding a way to see it through. So I just became a producer by default. Like I had no interest in learning how to do tax credit calculations and applying to Telefilm Canada and all of like I left high school with math very far in the rear view, like hoping to never have to look at it again.
Mhm.
But after banging my head against the wall for, about a decade, I finally went, okay, I'm going to learn the professional film system. I'm going to try to learn how all this stuff works. And then lo and behold, suddenly all other opportunities opened up because I actually knew what I was talking about. It wasn't just about the creative and the physical production. It was just understanding the business of the economics of film and it's rarely about the creative when it comes to people giving you money to make the movie. It's what do they think they can sell? This is a product at the end of the day. And like that's why we see so many movies that aren't really that great and just question how did it get made? Somehow on paper and the math just added up and they said, this is the next product that we put out there.
Um, Yeah, it's neat to hear your whole history and your love for independent cinema and just jumping in there. How would you say things are different today in terms of independent filmmaking? Um, what makes it easier, but what's also more challenging today than when you first started?
Yeah, I mean the gear is easier than ever. Like the playing field is completely level. The an iPhone is as good as anything in Hollywood if you just learn how to use it and use it in the right project. All the LED lighting that's come along and replacing most of the traditional lighting is so much cheaper, so much more accessible. The acceptance to shooting things with practical light, the camera sensors are much more forgiving. Your ability in post to color grade things like the DaVinci Resolve is the software that Hollywood uses, and it's the software that everybody doing wedding videos is using for color grading. It really has leveled the playing field, and that's a huge advantage. When I started, you had to shoot on film, and then early it started into the digital revolution. There was a Panasonic camera that came out that allowed you to shoot 24 frames a second. So it had the look of film instead of looking like broadcast TV or home video. And that was a huge game changer. So I sort of like jumped on the digital train the minute that it happened, but still incredibly expensive, not as commonplace. And I think the social media aspect of it, just finding like-minded people that want to do this and are willing to give up 5 weekends or whatever it takes to make that first feature and get themselves on the map as a gaffer or a camera person or an actor. That sort of networking and finding people is much easier than we were still putting ads in the paper and having to go on the local radio and like hope that people would show up to our auditions or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the ability to release your film. Like, yeah, we all want to go to Sundance. I'd still love to go to Sundance. But now you can make something and put it up on YouTube or get it on Tubi yourself. Like the distribution model in the digital and streaming era for indie film is awesome. There's a whole other side of it that you have to market it so that people watch it, but you can physically get your film out there. Whereas before, there was very limited avenues. You had to make something so outstanding with a real risk that there might not be a way that anybody ever sees it or buys it at the end of the day. And then the other side of it is like the disadvantages now compared to then is there's so many people doing it. The statistics are something like in 1994 or five, there was roughly 1,000 movies made around the world that year, and that included everything: TV movies, like the movies of the week, indie film, studio film, and now the number is something staggering, like 17 or
Oh
18,000
my goodness.
movies a year are made,
Wow.
and that's because it always comes back to that Jeff Goldblum quote, Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, the just because you could doesn't mean you should. I would say out of those 18,000 movies, honestly, probably at least 10,000 of those are just unwatchable
Hmm.
movies. But again, somebody had to get their first movie out of the way, or if it's with somebody's dying passion to tell this movie about a killer lobster, then great, go for it. Like that's your passion. But it is just a lot tougher because the market is so saturated. And then on top of that, you've got influencers and influencer culture where people will accept people playing four roles against a green screen doing comedy in their living room instead of going to see a comedy movie at the theater. So there's just so much more to compete with. So it's really, I just say to everybody all the time, just if you're gonna make a movie, if you're gonna write a movie, make it so, I mean, there's two lanes. Make it so sellable that it fits the box of Lifetime or Hallmark or whoever. And if you're trying to make original stories, just make sure it's so original and so fresh so that it just jumps off the page and it's not just don't write something that's everyone else can write because it's just not going to stand out at the end of the day.
So, in terms of bouncing off of that idea, what about in terms of marketing? So, for the independent filmmaker,
Mhm.
how do they go about getting their story out there in front of all the other 15 plus thousand films out there?
Yeah, it's you have to become a business person and a marketing and an advertising person and there's just yes, you could sell it to A24. And some friends in Toronto just made a movie recently called Undertone, which is super successful. It went to Fantasia, it got picked up by A24. They reworked it a tiny bit. It went to Sundance and then it blew up in theaters and made 19 or 20 million or something off of their $500,000 Toronto budget. Amazing, that's that's what we all want. That's what we all hope.
Mhm.
That is the lottery ticket. That is the rarefied situation. Good to know that it happens and can be incredibly inspiring. Um, but the reality is, for somebody making their own film, it's about creating your own marketing materials. Like I feel fortunate that I'm also an editor and a sometimes cinematographer because I can create marketing materials. Like when we did the Scarehouse movie, it was put out by Universal Studios, but we got the big, this is amazing. Universal's distributing the film. They didn't commit marketing dollars to it. They didn't fulfill any of the promises that were told to us. So they just sort of dumped it on digital platforms. It did a theatrical run in Canada. And even though we were top five at the box office in Canada, that didn't translate to America because it wasn't playing in theaters in America. And this is a sad lesson that most people learn going through distribution for the first time. You get all of these promises from these companies, but they don't fulfill anything. They just put it on all the platforms, which is great, but how does anybody know that it's there to watch? And that really becomes the filmmaker's job.
Yeah.
So, I've a whole separate conversation, but the quick cheat sheet on that is like you've got to be finding movie podcasts to be on. You've got to be out there chasing all of these Instagram and TikTok reviewers and offering them a film. And sometimes just that exclusive access to an indie film that not everyone has or feel like, because a lot of those influencers are trying to build themselves up into being mainstream YouTube critics or whatever platform they're on, giving them access to something indie and maybe a cast interview or something that really it's there's a mutual benefit there that can't be ignored. And I think, if you're going to festivals, you can't just submit your film to a festival and then like, hey, it got in. Like you have to travel to that festival. You have to travel a few days before your screening. You have to like network with everyone in the lobby. You have to like whatever town you're in, go put up flyers, hand out postcards, like engage the community, try to call the local radio station of that city and see if you can get on there. Like it is your job to be a one-man band and get out there and promotes the living hell out of your film, And it can't just be Facebook posts and Twitter posts into the void. Like that's all important, but that's not real engagement. It's not a real way to get people to pay attention to what you're doing. Last Call that Robin mentioned is a film that we shot in a true single take. So now that's become the catchy thing. We've got Adolescence on Netflix that did it. The studio with Seth Rogen did it. There was 1917. All of these awesome movies shooting in a single take, and TV shows. So we still use that. Like when Adolescence boom, and Adolescence deals with, you know, dark psychology and mental health issues, and that's what our film is about, is mental health. So we capitalize on that and tried to get some extra podcast interviews. Even though the film's been out for 5 years, it's always fresh to people that haven't seen it. So anytime there's something similar in the news, I mean, I'm not going to mention it, it's too personal. We have a film coming up where something in real life is happening to one of our actors that is exactly what's happening in the movie. And you're like, you we could jump on this and market it, but like it's just too personal and doesn't make sense. So I think
Mhm.
I think it's important to always kind of think of fresh ways to get your film out there.
And it's really interesting that these kind of tried and true techniques
Hmm.
that are used a lot, say in theater, and have been for years, where
Yeah.
you have to really promote your project. That
Yeah.
it's, that instead of it being turned over to the distributor in the traditional film model, that you still have to go out there if you're promoting your own work and promote it. And
I learned
it's
a lot of it through working with bands and being involved in. I used to shoot tour videos for bands on the road, and then I've done tons of music videos over the years and creating electronic press kit videos for bands. I just see how much that they do to promote every city that they go to as a tour, and how they, have street teams of people that used to go out and put flyers up, and they would engage fans to go out and make, share the content and get the word out for them. And that's
Mhm.
crucial. So between that, and then there's a filmmaker that I really admire and I've had a chance to become friends with over the years, Dan Mervish. He's the founder of Slam Dance Film Festival. But, prior to that, he was a filmmaker that had made an indie film in the mid 90s and just didn't know what to do with it. So he would rent a theater and then he would literally get a sandwich board sign and go out and stand outside of the theater for 8 hours a day for a week leading up to the screening, just telling
Wow.
anybody who would
Wow.
listen and handing out flyers. And we all see it nowadays. It's just the spinning sign guy for the weed shops. I feel like that's the one you see the most. But like it's effective advertising. Like it's so simple, but that's the most boots on the ground you could possibly be. It's
Mhm.
just, and there is like an electronic version of that where it's really important when you make your movie that you schedule time, especially if you have like sort of name cast or you're paying actors whose name value, that in the schedule and in the agreement is that they're going to sit down for 3 hours and you're going to interview them so that you have this talking head stuff that you can cut up into 30-second clips you can use as promo for months and months and months to come. I have a film coming out later this year called Sydney versus Sean, and we made a scrappy indie film, like a very very low budget, shot it in LA. Two or three recognizable TV cast names. We have Janelle Parrish from Pretty Little Liars and a bunch of Hallmark movies, T.R. Knight from Grey's Anatomy and The Flight Attendant. And we didn't have the time to do all the proper interviews. So we have a premiere that we're planning and we're all going to be there. It's like, okay, well, while we're there, we have to take half a day and shoot all this interview content so we have it for the months and months to come. And if you have behind the scenes photos, all of that, a lot of people tend to uh, use up all of their social media value before the film's even released, which is a very dangerous thing. It's very tempting to every day I'm in post production. Here's a selfie of me in the edit bay working on my new movie. Here's a photo of me color grading the movie. Here's us printing the posters. And then by the time, typically it takes 2 to 3 years for an indie film for the public to see it. And by the time it comes out, most of your audience, even your friends and family, are like, "Oh, that's old. That's from like a couple of years ago." Because they're not treating it like the way the movie studios do, where there's like a press announcement, maybe one set photo, a picture of the slate on day one of filming, and then, a poster and then a teaser. Like they just do so much. We all know, and I'm guilty of it too, is you bore your audience by just oversharing so much about one project and don't have any sort of real
Mhm.
strategy. And then by the
Mhm.
time the film comes out, you've used up all of your ammo. Like you've emptied the cache of weapons to go out and promote the movie, and it doesn't always translate to viewership.
So
Yeah,
how has that
everybody
affected?
likes new. That's
Yeah.
such a buzzword in advertising and
Yeah.
so forth. Yeah, that's a
So,
great point.
yeah. So how has that affected your approach to marketing? Can you just name a couple more specific examples of how not to overwhelm your potential audience with so much? Like, how do you
Yeah. It's a
balance
fine
that?
line, and there's no one real way. And I think it really depends on your audience. Like some people, for some actors and celebrities, they might have a big enough following that people are just so into whatever they're doing that it can work. But it is hard when you don't even have a date to tell people to look forward to, because typically the indie film process is you're making it and then trying to find a deal for it or get a distribution outlet somewhere. So you don't know when that film is going to come out from the time you complete it. And listen, it's also important when you have people working for, far less than they're worth for an indie film rate to come out and help you that there is an acceptable amount of, okay, I know you're going to post behind the scenes selfies. I know that this is also how you get to your next gig by just having that social cachet of, look, I'm busy. I'm making a film. Like, look, mom and dad, it was worth it. All of that kind of social value is needed and acceptable, but we do try to limit it. The Scare House is a good example where we just told everybody, like, try to, like, we're fine with social media, but can you, like, we're doing this with Universal. We want to be respectful. There are rules and limitations. Like, can you just clear it with us before you post anything? And that automatically made people do it way less because they didn't want to keep bothering us all day with, like, hey, how's this Instagram post look? But somebody did post the ending of the movie on
Yeah.
like day two of production, like while we
What?
were shooting the ending, and just like you can't,
Oh no.
so when people say no cell phones on set, I really truly understand it. It's just hard in an indie situation where people are doing you so many favors. There's only so much you can get people to like subscribe to your boot camp if they're already like sacrificing so much to be there. But I don't know how to not overdo it. Like I definitely haven't perfected it by any stretch. And it does come a point when it's coming out when you're gonna have so much content and sharing articles and things like that. The one thing I'll say is resharing. Like if you're on a podcast talking about your film and you share it on your social media, a month later, share it again because like your algorithm doesn't hit the same people every time that you
Yeah.
share it. I have like I'll post an old behind the scenes of a short film from 5 years ago. And people will be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. When can I see it?" I was like, 4 years ago on YouTube. It's been live for 4 years. Like here it is. Go watch it. We think that just because we have all these people on our social media that everybody's seeing everything, but it really doesn't
Mhm.
work like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I going back to the last call, I really enjoyed that film, Gavin. I thought you did an amazing job. As a filmmaker myself, I kept wondering uh, how did filming it in essentially two takes, and I'll let you
Mhm.
describe exactly what you did. That's what it looked like to me. I believe that's how you did it, like two cameras live at the
Yeah,
same time across town. But how did that help you as an independent filmmaker make a film more efficient, make it more economical? Did that really help you that way in comparison to doing the more standard method?
absolutely. I just want to say in the chat, I see Karen says you were just in Windsor 2 weeks ago, so my apologies for that. But I hope the city treated you well. Yeah. So last call again. The plot of the movie is Scott is a incredibly depressed man on the verge of suicide, and he attempts to call a crisis hotline. And because he's been drinking at a bar before he goes home and makes this call, he misdials by one digit and gets connected with a woman who works as a night janitor at a local college, who's expecting a son from her call, or, sorry, a call from her son that hasn't come home from the movies, and the babysitter is calling and like nobody knows what's up. So when she answers the phone, she's expecting it to be her son because she would never normally answer the phones at this college that she cleans at. And she answers the phone and it's this guy and there's this confusion about what's going on. And when she recognizes why he's on the phone and what his mental state is, she does the right human thing and just stays on the phone with him. And the movie becomes how does this person who is not a mental health professional, who doesn't know how to handle this very fragile situation, try to get through to this person as the stakes are ever increasing that she's not good at it. She makes him angry often and just trying to do the right thing. But the way we shot the movie, I said, was in a single take and split screen. So it's technically two single takes happening simultaneously. And as the viewer, you get to watch both sides of the story unfold together. So that was shot here in Windsor, and it was shot simultaneously. So we didn't shoot one side of it and then the next night go shoot the other side. We had two camera crews. When we say action, both sides of that movie play out all the way through to the very end and with no cuts. And the actors are actually acting over a telephone from their two sort of remote locations. And that was I had done some single take music videos, a couple single take short films. The project I did for Blumhouse was the world's first live movie, and that was a 20-minute-ish short film that was actually broadcast live over the internet, kind of like a mini War of the Worlds, where we were telling people this is a serial killer. He's broadcasting online, and he's threatening to kill these people, like looking through the window of this house, and it's up to you as the audience to figure out where he is or identify something and call the police. So sort of like as if this serial killer was taunting the police before committing the crime. So I had done all of these things working up towards a single take feature. I had written another single take feature that revolved around a school shooting, and I got three different deals for that over the years. Once with Mel Gibson before he was that Mel Gibson, and once with a producer from Lionsgate. And just because of the subject matter and America, and its love for guns, it just incidents kept happening and people kept backing away from the movie. So we never got to make it, but I made it all the way to rehearsals in that movie. So I had put in a lot of the technical research and problem solving that led up to Last Call. So David Wilkins, who stars in Last Call, also co-wrote the film with me. He came up with the core idea for the film, and him and I just in the writing process were using the research that I had done and really trying to apply. Let's write this to what we can do, because you have to write a movie like that to the location, because you have to um, if somebody's going to walk from a bar to their apartment, you have to know how long that takes on camera, because we have to know what's happening on the other side of the story with Beth at the college, and just make sure that like all of that screen time is occupied, because you don't have the advantage of cutting till later or fading into the next morning. So we were rewriting even through the rehearsal process to make that happen. And I think it was just I'm not afraid of challenges, and especially after completing Last Call. We knew going into Last Call we might only walk away with a movie about utter failure, that we might only have a documentary about failing to do this thing. Because adolescents, which I love, like they have Netflix money. They have
Yeah.
millions and millions of dollars and hundreds of PAs and all the ADs in the world that they want. And we had a scrappy budget of $50,000, and we had 10 days to rehearse the film and 4 days to shoot it and get it right. So in those 4 days, our aim was to shoot it twice per night, kind of like a stage play. But that's the camera operators going through, like everybody on our team, the sound department, camera team, lighting, everybody was running like it was like their Super Bowl, and asking them to go through the Super Bowl twice per night for 4 nights. Because hey, that job of focus pulling? Well, now you have to do that not for 30 seconds in a shot or not for a minute and a half in a shot, 80 minutes, 85 minutes, whatever it is,
Wow.
like from beginning to end. It has to be perfect to go. Like we had people that wouldn't join us on this project.
Mm.
Cinematographers that are friends of mine that I thought would be up for the challenge. And then when we explained what we wanted to do, we're just like, it can't be done, and walked away.
Just
Yeah.
to interject something as a viewer and a fan of that movie, all this stuff, the technical stuff you're talking about is so interesting, and it's really remarkable what was pulled off. But even more than that, and I think I told you this after I saw it, I have been a volunteer at San Francisco suicide prevention for years, and the character of Beth in the movie said everything that a person would say not being trained. And I thought that was so brilliant because you could tell she had such high empathy and she wanted to do the right thing. And yet, she didn't follow the prescribed, like, but she covered everything. Eventually, she covered everything to gauge how serious he was about this and so on. And I think that was what kept me. I mean, I found it really interesting to watch a split screen story and to see reactions from the actors and all that, and, very complicated that way. But the fact that the story held together and was so authentic was what keeps you invested in it as you watch it. So I just thought that was brilliant, a brilliant job.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was, we like the movie, the word gimmick gets thrown around a lot when you do a single take or some new special effect or whatever it is. And we knew we'd be up against that. So we actually leaned into marketing the gimmick when the movie came out because we
Hmm.
have a movie with two actors you've never heard of. And what's it about? It's a soul-crushing story about mental health and suicide. Great. Not easy things to get people into a theater. So we leaned hard for our first round into marketing the gimmick and the technical challenge, knowing that that would get enough people interested. And then once we
Hmm.
had reviews and the reviews were positive, thank God, we were able to start like the second wave of our festival run was marketing based on the story that we believed we had, but you never really know until an audience sees it. That's I'll say that too. If you have a gimmick, go for it. Like on Last Call, our composer did the score live in a single take as well. Like he took the same
What?
challenge. Yeah, he took the
Oh,
same challenge that
wow.
we did. That actually came out of a sort of joke. Adrian Ellis, who's our composer, one of my best friends, he's composed everything I've done since 2013. Really fantastic composer and human. But when I pitched him this project, I always tell him like, hey, this is the next project, and just kind of like let him know to clear his schedule for when it's coming up. And he just half joked. He's just like, well, I mean, if you guys are doing the movie live in a single take, like I'm just going to be the composer. Like I would have to do the score live to like, to keep up with you. And just kind of laughed it
Yeah.
off. In a moment of absolute exhaustion, it was the morning after we filmed our last take of the movie. I hadn't slept because we also, we borrowed this apartment from somebody for the movie and had to like move all their furniture out and then promised to move it
Mm.
back in the morning that we were done. So I hadn't slept in like 27 hours or something. And then I forgot, oh, the CBC's coming to interview me. So I'm standing in this empty apartment after all of this, just like you can see the interview. I'm just like, I look dead. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be excited. And they're like, anything else you want to tell us? I said, yeah, Adrian Ellis, our composer, is also going to do the score live in a single take. Just thinking like, oh, that'll be funny if they air that. So they did air that, and I sent it to Adrian, and he sent me back the famous clip from oh, what's the newscaster that lost his mind and when the first one that ever got caught on
Oh,
camera.
network.
Fuck it, we'll
Network.
do it live. No, the guy, the
Yeah.
real Bill O'Reilly on Fox
Oh,
News.
okay. Hmm.
And that he just said, "All right, let's do it. How do we do this? How do we make this interesting?" And like that way, his philosophy was even if there's a creak of a chair from a violinist or you hear the page turn of the sheet music, it organically fits into what we did with the movie, where like we're not worried about the odd focus buzz. We're not worried about an and ah of an actor if it just like it's just about being authentic. And honestly, it's my favorite score that he's written for any of my films to date,
Mm.
and it just worked out beautifully. But all that to say, because he'd done this score in an interesting way, we went after soundtrack podcasts and composer interviews and things like that, where we knew we could squeeze out a little bit of extra marketing. And same with the technical challenge. All the gear companies that we use their gear to pull off this feat. We had a deal with Red Camera that they sponsored us the cameras in exchange for some sort of research data that we could provide them because all not to get too technical, but all cinema cameras have like a heat sensor in them and they get very hot as they run. So typically what ruins a 5 minute take is the fan of the camera kicking in. So we had to learn what you can change the speed and the volume, the noise level of the fan, but at risk of melting the sensor. So we had to do all of this technical research of how low could we run the fan that it won't affect the audio. And because we don't want to ADR this movie, why make a single take
Wow.
movie if the
Yeah.
actors have to dub everything? But all that to say is Red put out a press release on our behalf and talked about the technical achievement. Black Magic that owns DaVinci Resolve, they thought it was really fascinating how we color graded these sort of two single takes side by side. They put out a press release on our behalf. So then we got their entire press worldwide and all these extra bonuses and articles and things out of the technical challenge of the movie.
That's
Excellent.
great.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
cool.
Joan is asking how long was the rehearsal process? And then I'd like to just
Yeah.
piggyback. How did that, because you had 10 days, I think you
Yeah.
said. Um, how did the story change, or did it during that
Yeah.
long rehearsal period?
That is an excellent and painful question. The first part, how long? So we had the advantage of my wife Sarah Booth plays Beth in the film, and David that I wrote it with plays Scott. So we were able to, even in early drafts of the script, sit down in our apartments in LA and just walk through it and just talk through it and just and have long discussions about character and then because we didn't have to pay people, we could do this kind of often, and it worked out leading up to the shooting of the film for about 4 months. Sarah was in Montreal. I was in Windsor prepping the movie and getting things ready. David was still in Los Angeles with his very pregnant wife and their other child. So we could only rehearse over the phone, which worked out great because they were never in the same room together. And then we kept that going when
Oh,
we had this 10 days of rehearsal, and that's all of our performance rehearsal and technical rehearsal. If we were rehearsing her side of the story for the morning and then his in the afternoon. We would, if it was Sarah's side of the story, we never had David on set. David was always calling in. They never got to see what the other one was going to do on camera. So as for their
Hmm.
performance, it was very fresh that they couldn't see the reaction they were going to get or know, oh, they're playing it like this, so I'm going to match this like that. We really wanted it to be blind so that the audience would have this sort of bird's eye view into these two lives, and that's where a lot of the tension comes from. There's a small example. Beth last like, Scott, I'd really like it if you didn't drink anymore tonight. Like I know you told me you've been drinking. Like, can you do that for me? And he agrees, and then immediately quietly takes another sip so she won't hear the ice clicking. And like as an audience, you're like, fuck. Like, so you have this like the tension just kind of keeps building. But if Sarah knew he was going to do that, she might give the line differently. You know what I mean? Like, so we just tried to keep them
Hmm.
separate. So we spent 4 days just going back and forth between we'll rehearse one side, then the other. And at the same time, our camera operators are, which is myself and our cinematographer Seth, we're on our feet, we're learning the blocking. We would film every rehearsal. Once we started to split off and do the two separate sides, we would just keep a phone line open so we could stop and start through it, but we could always hear each other. Instead of having walkie-talkies, those two were connected over speakerphone
hmm.
and we would block it. And then we'd film every rehearsal, and at night I could just throw it in Adobe Premiere, do a rough side by side, and we would watch it over and over like a coach with a game tape and be like, oh, this is really interesting. Seth, you circled Sarah here. So if I, at this exact moment, circle David on the other side, there'll be this poetry, this symmetry between the two images. And then and the split screen actually changes from like a traditional vertical split screen to sometimes rotates to horizontal. And it actually starts horizontal because I think people, when they think split screen, they just think it's going to be vertical. And there's the methodology to that. That one, it's kind of like the hands of a clock. We have this real time movie they're switching, but when they're not connected on the phone or emotionally connected, it switches to the horizontal split. And then when they are more connected or actually on the phone together, it goes to the vertical. And that originally was born out of like, I'm like, are people just gonna be bored of this movie? Two people talking on the phone. And I was like, how can we visually change it up every once in a while? I was like, well, what if we rotated the screen is, but the camera operators have to know exactly when that's happening to reposition the camera for best framing for the vertical or horizontal. And then it ended up becoming this more organic idea of like it's the ticking clock, and this is the it all good ideas eventually find their way into you making excuses about how they fit the story. Yeah.
You also, though, besides doing the horizontal and vertical switch, which
Hmm.
was interesting when it happened, I wasn't expecting that. But I think more importantly, you, like a theater director, their staging was so well. It wasn't just two people sitting down, static, talking to one
Yeah.
another. Beth was constantly, cleaning or going outside or doing
Yeah.
something like that. And even even he was walking around the apartment. So I thought it was really staged well and kept it visually interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, there's times where you're like, well, in the college, for example, there's a lot of glass doors, a lot of glass windows. That's a lot of reflections for the camera operator to dance around. There are times where he is millimeters away from being like, and we knew we figured we probably have to digitally paint out some shadow or reflection, but our production designer Emily was brilliant. She's like, what if there's a student election and they've just obnoxiously posted flyers conveniently wherever we don't want to have a potential reflection? So we made up all these
Ah,
fake student names and campaign slogans. There's a couple nods to Napoleon Dynamite in there. There's some vote for Pedro
Mm.
signs amongst all the other things, you know. Not
Fun.
really the right movie for comedy Easter eggs, but yeah, always just trying to every day was just a new challenge. And there were times where David, we can laugh about this now, but David pulled me aside on our second or third day of filming. So we only have limited amount of takes left in a couple days. And I had just kept saying like, well, we might only get this documentary about failure out of it. And he pulled me aside and just said, I need you to tell me that you're joking because it's not impossible that you would secretly be just trying to make a documentary about failing. Like, I need to know we're trying to like make this happen. Um, I saw in the chats talking about getting sponsors on board. That can be a huge thing for indie film. I'll give you an example with Sydney versus Sean. We have a winery and a hot sauce company that sponsored us, and they're both small businesses, but if they kick in $1,000, $3,000, and you're trying to make your first movie for $50,000, it's good money. It's either like it makes it easier to raise the rest, or it gives you just a little bit more to get that extra piece of gear or a couple extra PAs for your shoot to make things easier. So I think sometimes people think about sponsorship and like last call, yes, we had Red and that was great. We were going to shoot the movie on much smaller Sony DSLR cameras. It would have been a lot lighter weight on camera operator's shoulders, but we had the advantage of them saying yes. So we moved to their and that meant we could also shoot the film in 8K resolution. So there's still like an 8K master of the film that I've never seen because I
Mm.
don't own an 8K screen anywhere. But
Mhm.
the idea was, well, there's probably going to be like some camera shake or like the odd like hitting a door frame that we're going to want to be able to reframe. So the more resolution you have for that, the better opportunity you have to kind of fix things like that in post. We didn't end up doing any of that, but now we have this future-proof version for when 8K TVs eventually become the thing. You know, we're already there. We won't have to upscale the movie.
Nice.
But yeah, so if you can get big sponsorships, great. That's hard to do when you're making a movie that doesn't have big stars and things in it. I shot a TV show last year, an interactive murder mystery, and just because it was the first of its kind and it was with an up and coming streamer, we were able to get some good gear sponsorships and things involved in that too. We did have to make content for all those companies. You know, I had to provide sort of like little making of videos about how we use their gear to tell this story, and especially on the technical side of Last Call. But again, that all becomes great marketing tools for us, you know. And you try to jam in as much of your story into that product video that's going to make people interested in and maybe checking out your film.
Yeah. And would you say that by the when it is all said and
Mhm.
done, was this film, say, more economical than other indie films you've done that are feature
Mm.
length?
I would
You know,
say it
you
was,
only
I
shot for
would
about a
say,
week,
yeah.
right?
We shot for four
With
days, 10 days of
rehearsals.
rehearsal. So 10, so 14 days,
Okay.
couple days of
That's
prepping
pretty short.
locations and things. But it's also like, you know, a lot of the Hallmark movies these days are shot in 12 days. Like it's an
Oh,
insane
wow.
wow.
schedule.
Wow, wow.
You
Okay.
know, typical indie film is 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So I would say it averaged out about the same because although it's the same with I know this from single take music videos. Most music videos nowadays you get 1 day to shoot. That's the budget. That's what it is. So you're for a one take music video, you're spending 11 of your 12 hours rehearsing and prepping and getting everything perfect and then getting that final take you're going to use versus getting 100 shots, you know, in smaller pieces throughout that 12 hours. So
Yeah.
the math was about the same. You know, we had an
Okay.
incredibly tiny crew. There was nowhere to put boom operators, so the actors are lav only. So we have a sound person on each side, camera person on each side. I'm one of those. a camera assistant on each side, just mostly to make sure people don't trip, or if there was a battery emergency or something in the middle of a take, they could fix it. The two actors are AD and a PA and a behind the scenes person. Like it was the tiniest. It's like the credits are like,
Mm.
I'm like, can we just roll them slower because there's so few of them? Like, how do we how do we do this? I see in the chat. So yes, the we did run actor rehearsals and technical rehearsals side by side because it was sort of the only way to get all the blocking. Because the actors also have to know where they're standing, where the camera is going to be, all of that, so it doesn't get in the way of their performance. And somebody asked me, what do I think about verticals? I think they're awful. It's making a lot of money, so I understand it. I do have hope that they all go away. I just don't like the format of vertical. Like we have this much richer, and unless you're making a movie about the history of stilt walking or like the creator of the Snakes and Ladders
That's
movie. I
not
don't
a
know.
bad idea, Gavin. You
Like
might want to consider
something
that
that
as your
somebody
first
could use like
vertical.
a tall format for something really interesting.
Right.
Maybe a music video where the four band members are on fire escapes, like at the side of a building. Could
I
be
like that.
awesome. Um, I just think the problem with verticals is like the content currently being made that's popular is just trash. It's just garbage, like soap operas are high art compared to like the vertical content being produced, and it's not about art. And anything that's not about art, I just don't think should exist to begin with. But I get
Although,
it.
since
People
there's
enjoy
such
it.
crap out there, maybe it's an opportunity for people who write more compelling stories
Hmm.
to do something in that format
I hope that
as a
comes
way to
true. And
dip your toe in.
yeah,
Yeah.
I spoke to a few companies about doing some horror vertical shorts, but the main model that when people say verticals is micro dramas, right?
Yeah.
Vertical micro dramas. The
Hmm.
idea is that every 2 to 3 minutes the episode ends, and then you eventually, after three free episodes or whatever, start paying for the next round. So they're, 99 cents, 99 cents. And they sort of did like what video games did on phones, where it's like,
Mhm.
you want to keep playing, you're gonna pay. And they
Yeah.
get people hooked and they make so much content, but I hope somebody figures out how to do it good. But I don't I think there's something about the audience that enjoys this sort of like smutty, brainless content that just ties into the people willing to pay for that content. I don't know if you make something more high content because I can't believe somebody hasn't been like, why don't we make a Euphoria spinoff and put Zendaya
Mm.
and Sydney Sweeney in it, and like we'll make gazillions, and you'll have to pay 99 cents every three episodes. Like it's not my thing, but I also think that as everything, we are going to transition from smartphones to like some kind of wearable tech, whereas like augmented glasses or whatever, and this field of view is horizontal. So I think vertical is short-lived. Um, so yeah, I keep up. I
Um,
keep up on it. I have lots of friends working in it. Cinematographer that shot my film, Sydney versus Sean. He's like the main cinematographer in LA, doing like so many verticals. And listen, it's one of the only things offering a steady paycheck for a lot of people in LA in like times when it's very trying. So like
Uh-huh.
happy for everyone, being always happy when people are being paid and getting their work out there. But it's not the thing that I want to be doing.
yeah.
Gravitate to. Yeah.
Paul just mentioned, yeah, that each episode really has to be between 1 and 2 minutes. 3 minutes, and you've lost them. I just learned this. I had lunch with a cinematographer last week who is a camera operator and/or cinematographer on feature-length verticals, and I was shocked when he first told me that they would shoot feature-length verticals in just 7 days. So
Yeah.
he just was a cinematographer on a horror feature-length
Mhm.
vertical, and he also said that each episode, I was thinking two to
So they
five
break
minutes.
them up.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
take the
but
film
it's
and then break up after
But
the
you
yeah.
have to
fact.
write them in a way that there's like a cliffhanger for there's
Uh-huh.
a reason to keep people hooked to come back. Yeah.
He said both. He said they would oftentimes film a whole scene and then cut it up in on the edit floor. But there were some times where there was an absolute
Yeah.
strong beat that they would cut on. But he said that when I said, "Oh, are these episodes 2 to 5 minutes each?" He said they're actually 30 seconds to 2 minutes max. And I'm like, maybe that's part of the problem of why they're not so good. That's not how real life works. But like you said, Gavin, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people are buying them. I mean, it is being successful, at least in some parts of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole world. I keep abreast of it. Like I said, I've had many a meeting about doing it. I just haven't had to jump to the dark side yet. But again, if people are getting employed and that's the way that they get their foot in the door and they're able to like make a bunch of content quickly, like you'll never go wrong with that, you know? And nobody in the industry is going to shame people for working on these lower budget. The only thing that I hate
Right.
is it's just the next, Hallmark comes in with their 12-day model. Then they come in with a 7-day model. And like
Yeah,
it ultimately means people are working very hard and long hours for less pay, and
Hmm.
it's just disrespecting people being able to earn a good living without having to work so
Yep.
many days a month. And like it's grueling days on a film set. It doesn't matter what department you're in. Those are long, hard days.
yeah,
And it is just it's incredibly disrespectful. They should at least have some, and maybe some have started doing it like a profit share model where the people that are working so hard to make these for so little can share in the billions of dollars that these Chinese companies are making.
Hmm.
But that's a whole different problem the industry faces constantly.
and it still is primarily coming out of China,
Yeah,
the
the main
content.
companies.
Yeah.
Listen, everyone's trying to jump onto it. Even
Hmm.
Blumhouse, like they're,
Yeah, the
like
studios
some of
are,
this horror. Yeah, like
yeah.
everybody's always eyeing it. Listen, it could be great. It could be super fun. Um, I think horror would make the most sense for vertical because found footage, the idea of like
Yeah.
camcorder things like the Blair Witch and stuff. Everyone has a phone in their pocket now. So if you can do something found footage that's vertical, that would make sense. That's how people are filming constantly. So. I think like any format, the format's not bad. It's just the way that it's started and what became popular first that isn't, ideal and artistic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Oh,
there you
this
go.
is
There's
interesting.
200
Another
companies
comment.
making vertical microdramas.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is like the dot-com bubble. I wonder how many of those 200 companies
Mm.
survive at the end of the day. Because eventually there does just become too much content. And um, I like yeah, somebody says speaking of
Mm.
Hallmark, it doesn't seem like the genre to be the first to go full AI.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't want this to all become just a hate rant, but like AI also, the technology is incredible. The idea that somebody that was never going to have the opportunity wherever in the world to make a movie, didn't have access to money and everything, can like use a simple program and create their art without needing a crew or somebody who's disabled that's not maybe not able to get on set and fulfill their dream. Absolutely wonderful. The problem is, again, it will be used to save money and cut out jobs. And that's the problem we're seeing, where there's already the Christmas commercial made by um, Coca-Cola, and there's a handful of full AI commercials. When you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, it looks like garbage, but nobody boycotted Coca-Cola. Their stock didn't drop, so they're not going to stop doing that. And where a lot of indie film people go, crew people, when they're not making their passion project or whatever, is in the commercial world. And if you
Yeah.
start to eliminate that, then how do people eat? How do people, provide a living for themselves and for their family? And like, again, the tools are crazy that I could go make some sci-fi movie that I've got sci-fi scripts that need $200 million to make them. Like there's a very slim chance I ever get to see that through in my lifetime. It's very tempting to be like, let's play with all these AI tools and make it happen. And there's some good uses. Like I have the AI in Zoom turned on right now that summarizes the chat. There's excellent and efficient things for that. I
Yeah.
was never going to pay somebody to take notes during this. I was never going to go back through it myself and
Yeah.
summarize it or pay somebody to summarize it. So I'm not taking a job. But at the same time, I am training that AI for all the other writing things it's all feeding into the machine. So we'll see. I think people are going to make incredible films with AI. Like, there's lots of people out there doing it. There's eventually going to be something that we all see and go like, damn, it's really good. But the way that
Hmm.
people talk about it now just go like, oh, it's all slop. I'm like, the first Disney animation doesn't look great by today's standards. The first Pixar short films don't look great by today's standards. It's gonna get there. We're in its infancy. So it's exciting to see what it's gonna do. It's just again not really the kind of filmmaking that I like. I like being on a set with actors. I like being on a set with challenges in front of us every day and like figuring out that's the fun part of it. That's why I like doing it. So I don't like the technology that will take away from that. But you know, there's processes like I think post-production gets hit first because once AI can fully clean up audio and it's flawless and you don't have to hire a sound mixer or a dialogue editor. You're seeing it already with AI dubbing, foreign dubbing, where it sounds exactly like the actor in whatever country in whatever language that they're speaking in. They've even got the lip sync where they can change the lips to match the foreign languages. And
Hmm.
that's cool. And you're like, oh, that makes cinema more global. That's awesome. But that's cutting out the voice actors in each of those countries that would get hired and the
Mm,
studio that would get hired to record all of these people and the mix engineer and all of that other stuff. But I think that's all industries, film labs have largely gone away because we went to digital. Like technology is always changing. I just think AI is going to be so much more rapid where one prompt can eliminate all of the jobs on a set versus like, technology slowly chipping away or altering the way that we make things. But we'll see. Hopefully, and everybody goes, "Oh, the bubble's going to burst." And like the current companies might burst, but the same way we don't fly Wright Brothers Air, but we all fly. Somebody
right.
invents it, maybe isn't the successful one with it, but they paved the way for other people to figure out. Just like we're talking about
Right.
vertical, microdramas. Out of those 200 companies, probably not all going to survive, but one or two of them are going to figure out something so fucking cool with it that we all go, this, I love this. I want to do
Yeah.
this. I also
Hmm.
don't want to, I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of watching things on my phone at all. So
Mhm.
that pulls me right out of wanting to watch vertical microdramas.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to come back in a couple of weeks, Gavin, as a participant. We have a filmmaker and musician from Hollywood named Leo Partable. He's going to be speaking about assistive AI with us. He is working with this new AI program and even teaching a class in LA this month, actually, on how to use it as a filmmaker, more in an assistive sense than generative. So I think that will be a really
Yeah.
interesting conversation for those of you who really want to know more about what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're in a time where it's going to change so rapidly, so quickly, but that also tends to make the people funding projects more scared. And then they're unwilling to take risks as much. And we already live in a world of people wanting the safest bet. And film and TV is just not a safe bet and never has
Yeah.
been.
Hmm.
And time again, the things that people take a risk on tend to be the things that we all love, even if they're not as financially successful as, just the dumbed down content and sequels and remakes that they can do. So anything that gives people an excuse to say no to purchasing a script or greenlighting a film, I just generally don't think it's a great idea.
Right. We are very close to, oh, we just hit 11 o'clock. So does anyone have another question? Otherwise, John's going to talk a couple minutes about the retreat.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about anything in this industry, from writing to getting things made, whatever you guys want to know. I'm here and got time.
Last call for
Last
Last
questions.
call for
call.
last call. Yeah.
Well,
Or all just say collectively that you're bored of hearing me talk and
Yeah.
I'll disappear.
John, I hardly. John, did you
oh,
want
this
to
has been great. Sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's go ahead.
do a
And if
little?
y'all have a question, just pop it in and I'll just go
Yeah.
ahead and make sure everybody knows Gavin's going to be one of our mentors at our upcoming retreat. We're so excited. We got to meet and talk with Gavin last year, and he did a Zoom session for us last year, and we were hoping he'd be able to make it. But he's making it this year, and we're just thrilled. So, for those of you that don't know much about our retreats, we started last year and we had an amazing screenwriting, playwriting retreat in Scotland on a beautiful private estate of 2,000 acres. And it just went so well. Many of the people who were there last year, including Jonah and Karen, who are on this call, will be returning. And we have Gavin and three other mentors who will be helping you with concept and development. So you can still bring a script if there's one that you've been working on and want some feedback on. But what we think is so interesting about this idea is we have people coming with, say, three great ideas and kind of pitching them to the mentors, the people that are working. These are all active working professionals. getting their feedback and advice on what they think is the most viable and exciting idea, and then helping you to develop it while you're there during the retreat. So that by the time that you leave, you have a very strong foundation and can work with confidence that you're working on a noble and viable idea. But we also have Christopher Lockhart, who was there last year. He's the story editor at William Morris Endeavor, and he works with some amazing people, including a lot of famous actors like Denzel Washington, on helping them get any of their script projects to a better state. We also have Joan Lane returning, and actually Joan is here, I believe. At least she was here earlier. But we love everybody loves Joan. She's an amazing person, and she has done a lot of theater and film work in England. We got lots of hearts coming up from Jonah Screen for Joan. But Joan is London based and has worked in the West End for many years, and also is the person who is responsible for getting the King's Speech movie made. She was with it when it was just a play. And just as you were talking, Gavin, about all the different ways you go about getting a movie made and then promoting it, Joan is so excellent at all of that, of making those connections, and then knowing how to push it forward and get that visibility. So she'll be there. And then our other new mentor is Janet Batchelor. And Janet is the only woman to date who has written a feature length Batman movie. So she wrote Batman Forever, the one with Val Kilmer. And she is a beloved teacher at USC Film School, and she will be with us as well. And that's just mentioning the amazing, talented professionals we have. But the estate that we're going to be staying at in England is beautiful. It's also private, so everybody gets a private place to stay, amazing food, and a lot of time to either spend the afternoons working on your script or working one on one with the mentors. Or just going for a walk. We designed the retreat to have those times where you can choose what you want to do in the afternoons. But it's a wonderful way to build community, as the people that went last year are still talking and collaborating to the state over 6 months later. And that is what brings Robin and I so much joy, is helping people to connect. And Robin, what else? Anything I missed?
I think you covered it really nicely. We're just really looking forward to another super exciting time with people and watching, as John said, watching these writers come together. You know, not everybody lives in LA or New York, and so building a community of people that you trust and that are interested in your success is really so important, because
Mhm.
it's discouraging, and you feel like a one-man band often. And actually you are a one-man band often. So coming together and meeting like-minded people is just really inspirational. And for the two of us as well. I mean, I've never been so excited about returning and getting to work
Mhm.
on some scripts that I knew needed help, but I didn't quite know where to go. And being at the retreat with all the other writers was just really fantastic for me personally. So, for those of you who can make it this year, we'd love to welcome you. And yeah,
Yeah, we dropped the link into the chat box. But of course, you're probably already on our list, and come visit our website. We'll be continuing to spread some information through our emails. And of course, we have three other amazing story sessions coming up on the next 3 Saturdays. So next week, we will be meeting with my friend Todd, and Todd Gallicano, who is a writer, screenwriter, and a published author. And he has a Christmas movie on Netflix that was the number one Christmas movie when it came out a couple years ago. And he's a great guy, and he'll be sharing with us next Saturday. So same time, same bat time, same bat channel, right? As next week. So yeah.
great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to meeting those of you we don't know in person. Look forward to that and seeing our old friends from last time. So appreciate
Yes.
it.
Gavin, thank you so much. This was
Thank
very
you, Gavin.
interesting, and we're so excited that you're part of our next retreat.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Thanks everybody for being here today. And it's always honestly every time I have to do like the walk down memory lane for a movie, it just gets me so much more excited. Like we're prepping another small budget. And my methodology too is if somebody's not paying for me to make a movie, I'm gonna put up my own money and just go figure out something else we can make small. So we have another two-hander coming up that I just talking about all this today just gets me more excited. I'm already like, oh, I have to go send 6 emails of things I've thought about for making last call that I need to talk to the team about. So it helps me as much as I hope it helps anybody listening.
Great. All righty. Well, enjoy the
Awesome.
rest of your Saturday, and thank you again.
All right.
Take
Have a great
care.
weekend. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.